What's going on, everybody? Thank you guys so much for watching the show. Wanted to talk to you about our friends over at Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching sports. This app is really easy to use. You just pick more or less on a few player stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your cash on a single lineup. Best of all, Prize Picks will give you $50 when you play your first $5 lineup. Win or lose, you'll get $50 for playing. Use the promo code PFF and download the app now. Our staff gave this an A+. I gave this an A+. Curious if you echoed the sentiment here. We had Tetero and McMillan going in the first round for this team, and then they went to the defensive line with Nick Scorton and Princely Umanmielen on day 2. Trevor Etienne, running back 2 of the future, I think, for this team in the 4th round, along with a guy who I think could start at safety opposite Trayvon Merrick in Lathan Ransom. They got a great interior defender in Cameron Jackson in the 5th, as well as tight end Mitchell Evans. And then in the 6th round, Jimmy Horn Jr., the wide receiver out of Colorado. Again, A+ here from me, Dalton, A+ from the PFF staff. Do you echo the sentiment, or are you a hater?
No, easy A+, my favorite class in the entire league. I love every single one of these picks. I absolutely love it. And it starts with taking Tetero and McMillan 8th overall. It's something we talked about for a long time leading up to the draft is, look, we know they're the lowest graded defense in football. We know they need a star on defense, but this is, especially on the defensive line, a very deep draft guys you can get on day 2, and they got a couple of really good ones, actually 3 really good ones, day 2 and day 3. I'll add Cam Jackson in there because I think he's perfect for what they need in their run defense. But it's the mindset of starting out with McMillan, building around Bryce Young, who, when he came back off the bench last year through the end of the regular season, 6th best passing grade in football, second, I believe it was the 2nd best big-time throw rate. Bryce Young really started to figure it out down the stretch, and now you get a true number 1 weapon for him in McMillan. This offense could be dangerous with Etienne in there. Now you've got 3 good backs in Hubbard, Dowdle, and Etienne. I really like their tight end room with Mitchell Evans added in there with Tommy Tremble and Jatavian Sanders, who I think you'll see move around the formation a lot. They're deep at receiver. They have a good offensive line. This Panthers offense, as long as Bryce Young keeps making the progress that he did the second half of last year, this is going to start to be fun to watch. And I think McMillan to be that guy who can win one-on-one on the outside is extremely important for them. And then you have to love, especially these 2 day 2 picks. Nick Scorton, a great value late in the 2nd round. Princely Umanmielen, a great value in the 3rd round. I thought he should have been a 2nd round pick. You talk about this team being last in so many categories, especially on the defensive line, and what they added in free agency, what they added with these 3 players in the draft. I think they are going to slowly get a lot better. The one position they couldn't address was linebacker. They'll figure that out as they go. But when you look at the job they've done up front, you mentioned Lathan Ransom at safety as well with Trayvon Merrick. I think this team is going to be a lot better. I don't know if they're a playoff contender yet, but if you talk about building around Bryce Young and filling in the holes otherwise, they did a fantastic job.
Yeah, I think that phrase that you just said there is still really important that I think a lot of people forgot about. Going into last season, remember, like going into the 2024 season, we all said the same things. This is just about figuring out if Bryce Young is the guy. And that was what the whole offseason was supposed to be about, making sure that you draft the wide receivers, get the offensive line that you need, get the running game that you need, all of that. Like, it was all to figuring out the question, is Bryce Young the guy? He has 2 terrible games to start the season, so much so that he gets benched. Only comes back in because Andy Dalton had that thumb injury, but then Bryce Young looked really good. I think that we forget that even though Bryce Young looked good at the second half of last season, the question is still there. Given the fact that he played so terrible that he was benched at the beginning of the season, you still have to ask the question, is Bryce Young the guy? Does he come out hot this regular season? Does he hit the ground running right where he left off last year? Because if he does, then he is going to be the guy for you. But you still have a responsibility to make the team better around him, to make sure that you can answer that question as confidently as possible. So that is a big reason why I love the Tetero and McMillan pick, independent of how much I liked him as a prospect. And then the thing that I love about the Panthers, and the reason why this draft is, it feels like unanimous A and A+, it's because of the value. You mentioned that. It's the value of these picks. Nick Scorton and Princely Umanmielen, both of those players are guys that we have talked about as potential first rounders before, back end of the first round guys, right? But when we talk about them as back end of the first round guys, a lot of times You bring up the positives of why they would be considered there, but also the negatives of why they wouldn't. Prince Umanmielen, all right, well, is he an every down defender? Is he going to be good for you on run defense downs? Is he just a designated pass rusher? Nick Scorton, the numbers weren't as good this past year. You liked him more as a stand-up outside linebacker. The weights kind of fluctuated between his time at Purdue and Texas A&M. What kind of a player are we getting here? The thing is that when you draft a guy in the first round, you have to really talk about those questions. When you draft Nick Scorton in the second, it doesn't really matter. That's such good value that you only have to focus on what he does well. The same exact thing with Prince Umanmielen. Getting him in the third round means even if he is just a designated pass rusher, great. Especially for the incredible first step that this guy has and the bend that he has. You don't have to worry about a lot of the negatives. Cameron Jackson's another one. When people talk about Cameron Jackson, how much of an ox he is in the run game in the middle of the defensive line, in run defense, you go, man, he's so good, I consider him in the third round. But when you consider him in the third round, you go, pass rush win percentage was just 6.6% this past year. Is he ever going to give you anything on passing downs? You don't have to worry about that as a fifth rounder. He's a fifth. He could be exactly what he is, and you could just lean into his strengths. So this whole class is full of great value, good fits, and I think it just advances what the Panthers are trying to do so well. So I agree with you. A+ on this draft. Anything else on the Panthers before we get to the Saints, the last team in this division?
I mean, I just look at the D-line and everything they've added this offseason. Bobby Brown, Tershawn Wharton, Pat Jones, Nick Scorton, Princely Umanmielen, Cam Jackson, and they're getting Derek Brown back because he only played one game last year before suffering a season-ending injury. So you've got a brand-new defensive line in Carolina that should be a lot better as a unit.